Welcome to Unstoppable You Now, where we uncover profound lessons from nature to help you build a stronger and more resilient mindset. Deep within the corner of a lush, vibrant garden, two distinct spiders lived, each holding a very different philosophy about life and work. Meet Leo, a spider who believed in action over theory, starting his day immediately as the sun began to rise over the horizon. Then there was Silas, a creature of high intellect and artistry, who sat quietly observing, calculating the perfect angles for a masterpiece. Leo wasted no time spinning his silk, moving quickly from branch to branch, not worrying if every single line was perfectly straight. His web looked somewhat ordinary, with a few crooked lines and stray leaves caught in the sticky threads, but it was functional. Despite the imperfections, Leo's web did its job, trapping small flies quickly, allowing him to eat and fuel his body for more work. After a quick meal, Leo would return to his web, reinforcing weak spots and fixing holes, learning through the process of doing. Meanwhile, Silas watched with disdain, believing that such messy work was an insult to the art of web spinning and engineering precision. Silas spent hours just measuring the distance between leaves, ensuring the geometry was flawless before he even released a single thread of silk. If a single thread sagged even a millimeter, Silas would tear it down immediately, refusing to accept anything less than absolute perfection. When a tiny drop of morning dew fell and slightly warped the tension, Silas destroyed the entire section to start all over again. He told himself that once he created the most perfect web in the world, he would catch the biggest and rarest butterflies. Silas imagined all the creatures of the garden gathering around to bow down and admire his flawless creation, praising his superior intellect. Days turned into weeks, and Silas remained stuck in the planning phase, obsessed with his grand design while his stomach began to rumble. He ignored his hunger, convincing himself that the sacrifice was necessary for greatness, while his energy levels slowly began to deplete and fade. In contrast, Leo had already rebuilt his web a dozen times, changing its shape to suit the wind direction and insect patterns. Leo realized that the north corner had strong winds, so he thickened the silk there, adapting his strategy based on real feedback. He was not a perfectionist, but he was adaptable, and his belly was always full because he focused on function over form. Silas grew weaker and more frustrated, as the perfect conditions he waited for never seemed to arrive in the unpredictable, chaotic garden. Perfectionism had become a cage, trapping Silas in a cycle of endless revision, preventing him from ever completing a single usable web. While Leo was ugly but effective, Silas was beautiful in concept, but useless in reality, a tragedy of wasted potential and time. The sky began to darken as heavy gray clouds rolled in, signaling that the gentle days of summer were coming to an end. The birds stopped singing, and the other insects sought shelter, sensing the pressure drop. But Silas was too distracted to notice the danger. Leo felt the change in the air and immediately began securing his web to the strongest branches, preparing for the incoming storm. Silas was still fussing over a single geometric angle, completely ignoring the darkening sky, believing his perfection would somehow protect him from nature. Suddenly, the wind howled through the garden, shaking the trees violently and sending leaves swirling into the air like a chaotic dance. Leo's web was hit hard, tearing in half instantly, but because he knew his structure well, he quickly scurried to a safe hiding spot. He huddled under a thick leaf, watching the rain pour down, confident that he could rebuild everything once the storm had passed. But for Silas, disaster struck hard because he had no completed web to anchor himself, only a few fragile, unconnected threads of silk. His unfinished masterpiece was instantly blown away by the first gust of wind, leaving him exposed, vulnerable, and without any protection at all. The wind tossed his light, starving body into the mud, far away from the perfect location he had spent so long curating. When the storm finally settled and the sun returned, the garden was a mess of broken branches and wet leaves scattered everywhere. Leo emerged from his shelter, shook off the water, and immediately began spinning a new web, using the damp branches as anchors. Within an hour, Leo had a crude web up and running, catching the insects that emerged after the rain, surviving and thriving. Silas, battered and bruised, crawled out from the mud, looking at the empty space where his perfect vision was supposed to be. He realized painfully that he had nothing to show for his time, while the imperfect spider was already back to business as usual. The pursuit of perfection had cost him everything, leaving him hungry and homeless, while the pursuit of progress had kept Leo alive. We often wait for the perfect moment to start, or the perfect plan to execute, but life does not reward mere planning. Imperfect action is always better than perfect inaction, because you can improve what exists, but you cannot fix what never got started. Survival belongs to those who adapt, those who put their work out into the world and learn from the scratches and dents. Do not be like Silas, paralyzed by the fear of flaws.